a box together for Sanford to give to people.
Oh, did you?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this is, oh, so there's only one box there to
No, I did a separate,
Oh,
totally
okay.
separate thing for her. And I just put them on
Put
the
them on my
table.
bed. Yeah.
Put them on your bed?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, put them on my bed.
Okay.
Everything is, except the banking card is screwed. It's blue lights on and the battery.
You need a text
Vedanta the
in the filing cabinet.
on page 39. Page 38.
We're around 70, yes?
78.
78.
But 38 page. So click on that. Yeah, like this.
78 hertz, okay.
And then here about this. Yeah, that's this one.
Oh, you.
We're in the room down
Good.
there.
That's 79. This seems just 78.
Occasional.
Shivani is not come back?
Not
Not yet, yeah.
I'm not sure.
Yeah. Om. Last class for the year. Next year we'll see again. We'll finish this next year. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Coming towards the end of the text, we are now in the realm of overcoming, banishing what are called habitual orientations. This is the area of the text right now. And those habitual orientations, actually they should be called habitual disorientations. They don't orient you towards Brahman. They put you on a spin, Yeah. It's a big bluff. And so this is what we are in the terrain of. And last time we saw that one way to override this is through this Ishvara Darshanam, Brahma Darshanam everywhere. Dehabhimane galite Vijñāte Paramatmani Yatra Yatra Mano Yati Tatra Tatra Samadhayaha. Yeah. Yatra Yatra Mano Yati. And I talked about it in 2 stages. What was the first stage? Wherever the mind goes, there is Ishvara, yes. But before that, wherever the mind goes, there is Samadhi, meaning you become, quote unquote, heavy quotes, you experience, so to speak, or you understand, assimilate, and become the very oneness, become again an experience in heavy quotes, because there are no other words. You are the very oneness that you seek. That is called Samadhi. The subject-object fusion. In fact, the word fusion, I like, because if you don't have that, there is confusion. There is confusion about the nature of this fusion, because the fusion is always, the temptation is to fuse with the finite. And each time the jiva tries to fuse with the finite, it blows a fuse, because it gets angry, because the finite is not available, for fusing for too long. And that's what is the most confusing. But the real fusion is something that is already accomplished, because you are already one with everything. There is nothing to go, nowhere to come from, nothing to reach, nothing to come away from. It's all siddha vastu, vishaya, established vastu. It's already an accomplished thing. Atma is accomplished. You don't have to go and stand in line and, fill out a form to get Atma. You don't have to do no bureaucracy, no form filling, nothing. You don't have to do anything. It's already you. So therefore, the process is cognitive. And of course, here at this point in the text, the jnanam, the cognition has been taken place after approaching Guru and after, sitting on the Guru's head to give jnanam and everything. The cognition has taken place. And then now what? Now what is left is just myself. What do you mean myself alone is left? Myself is left means I have to deal with my own self. It's not that I don't know. At this point, no one can say I don't know. You can't say I don't know Brahman. But then, the person says, yes, I can't say I don't know Brahman, but I also cannot say I know Brahman as myself. There seems to be some kind of a little gap. Last time we spent 1 hour on this, so I want you to really recall what was said before proceeding further. So I gave the sentence, and the sentence Dehabhimane Galite. When the ahankara melts, Galite, melts means what? Like that wicked witch, you throw some water and what happens? Gone, becomes a puddle, right? Yeah. So like this, the ahankara also becomes a puddle when and the ahankara is what? Ahankara is dehabhimana. I am as good as this body. And then when does that happen? Vijñāte paramatmani. So knowing Atma as Paramatma, knowing Bhagavan as oneself, the body identification dies off. We explained this verse in detail. This verse is not from this text, but I had borrowed it and brought it in. And yatra yatra mano yati tatra tatra samadhayaha. Wherever the mind goes, there I see nothing but an extension of myself. I see myself alone. Now I told you that this is very hard to do, correct? Yeah, so I gave an interim solution. What was that? Huh? Anyone? What was the interim solution to getting to this place? Huh? No one? No, this same sentence, yatra yatra mano yati, was modified a little bit and presented. I'm giving lots of hints. All right, never mind. Yatra yatra mano yati, tatra tatra, what?
Tava padan.
Pankajam. Yatra yatra mano yati, tatra tatra tava pada pankajam. Wherever the mind goes, there I see your holy lotus feet. So you bring in Bhagavan and say that I see Bhagavan. So that gives, I told you, surrender and acceptance. And because of which acceptance, then the habitual orientations, when they die down, what happens? Yatra yatra mano yati, tatra tatra samadhayaha. From Drik Drishya Viveka, this verse is used elsewhere also, but a very famous verse used in many places. So here, so having reached this point in the text, towards the end, the author, Nrisimha Bharati, focuses on the habitual orientations and the various ways to tackle the habitual orientations. So, and then we were also told that the fusion, the habitual orientation also expresses itself in the fusion or the attempt to fuse with house, spouse, and wealth, all these things. And all these things, what do? They rob you of your sukha. Yeah, they rob you of your sukha. When sukha goes, sanity follows. And so this is what they do. So this whole identification, so this orientation, what we call habitual orientation, which is dismissed by Nididhyasana, is nothing but a continued misidentification with certain things. Before, the Atma was completely mixed up and embroiled in the Anatma. Now it is only embroiled in a few things, but those strings are very tightly woven. So you have to cut those things, it's like what they call in medical terms adhesion, they say adhesion. Things go and sticks where they should not stick, the two things stick, like flesh and bones and all these things. So then you have to go and cut off some tissue and give it some breathing room and separate these adhesions. And so this is what these verses are currently doing. So going further, next one. Supteruthaya suptyantam Brahmaikam pravichintyatam. Not chintyatam, chintyatam. Yeah. Supteruthaya suptyantam sutyantam.
Sukteruttaya sutyantam.
Brahmaikam pravichintyatam.
Brahmaikam pravichintyatam.
Nati dure nrinam mrityuhu.
Nati dure nrinam mrityuhu. Iti Vedanta dindimaha.
Okay, so how to lose these adhesions? Adhesions means addictions. To what? To house, to as one grows in knowledge, the addictions are not overt and not too many, but the ones that persist are extremely stubborn and do not leave. They just catch on. Monkey grip. Baby monkey, how it holds on to the mother, that's how the word monkey grip has come from. Yeah, it holds on because the mother doesn't take maternity leave. Mama monkey, as soon as she gives birth, she jumps to another tree. And if this baby doesn't hold on, finished. No survival of the species. So like this, these adhesions hold on. And how do I overcome them? How do I cut through this? Here it is said, that basically just the translation, we'll see the word by word later. From morning to night, see this Ishvara in everything. That's what you keep doing. Nirantaram. Nirantaram means without stopping, you keep doing that. No, but who is going to pay the bills? Bill is Ishvara. The one who brought the bill is Ishvara. The one who is standing with a stick on the head, if you don't pay it, is also Ishvara. That's what you have to see. Work is Ishvara, going is Ishvara, coming is Ishvara, car is Ishvara, road is Ishvara. This is what you have to do day and night. But how boring, when will I have time for my own thoughts? Where do your own thoughts take you? Give me a destination. No, they take me to Hawaii. I can go to Hawaii in my thought, I can go, Without Hawaii Jahaj means aeroplane. So without Hawaii Jahaj, I can go to Hawaii. Hawa means air in Urdu, yes. Hawa means Vayu. So Hawaii means a nice flying off place somewhere, completely unrealistic, and you can just go there. And I can't afford to go there, actually. I don't have a place there, I don't know anybody there, but I can have a little fancy of going there. Sitting here without spending money on tickets, I can just go visualize the beach. Visualize all the people on the beach and myself there also. And then here, that is very comforting. So I can go to Hawaii in the mind, I can go lots of places in the mind. And here you are bringing a big stop to it by this injunction, this, Nididhyasana mandate. And that from morning to night, only keep looking for Ishvara and looking everything as Ishvara, looking at everything as Ishvara, seeing Ishvara everywhere, seeing Brahman everywhere, starting with this body, mind, sense complex. You are telling me. Now, this is unacceptable because that is so boring, Ishvara, 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 Brahman, Brahman. But think of Brahman, think of Cancun. Which would you prefer? Definitely Cancun. Sun is there, sand is there. So many things are there. Correct? So why are you taking away a few small pleasures I have? I'm not going to Cancun. I'm just sitting here thinking of it. Because wherever the mind goes, if it doesn't go to Ishvara, where will it go? Anatma, Anishvara, and then Anisha. It will go to Anisha. What is Anisha? This identified mess is called Anisha. Identified with a body, identified with a mind, not Isha. Simple negation, simple nudge. Anyarthe, anything but Isha. And also Viparitarthe, certainly not Ishvara. Opposite of Ishvara, this Jiva, Anisha. Jiva is called by the name Anisha. And this Anisha, any thought that you have leads you to sorrow. Yeah. No, but Cancun what? Cancun will become can't coon because you can't go there. That's why, you can't go there. You can't go there because you think of Cancun. Yeah, 2 seconds you'll frolic on the beach mentally. You'll gambol on the lawns somewhere in front of the hotel, and then you'll eat some exotic things in the mind. All this is happening. And very soon from there, where does the thought go? To your local bank. Yeah, where you have a account, which they are threatening to shut down every month because you just don't even make the minimum whatever you have to keep. If the minimum is $100, you are always hovering on 99. This is the situation. This is the financial situation, which is why, unlike others, you are not getting on the plane to go to Cancun. What are you doing? You're sitting thinking about it. And then the happiness immediately turns into a lack. Correct? Yeah. What is lack? Lackluster life. So this lack is centered on my lackluster life. So this is what is very painfully coming to, the fore. Same thing. And then again you will spin off on something. The mind will spin off on something else and it will go some other place and enjoy some nice times. Oh, I'll go far away from all these annoying beings, annoying things, annoying people, annoying jivas, horrible people. I'll go far away and sit on top of a hill in Chin Mudra, some spiritual fantasy, because the fantasies are of many kinds. I just want to go into, what is that called? Maunam. Only at meal times I'll appear and make some sign language. Rest of the time, this is all spiritual fantasies, and then material fantasies, and then hoarding fantasies. The bank balance, you see, myself and Bill Gates, we have the same bank balance. Wonderful fantasy. So what will I do with this money? Oh, first I'll hand it over to all my friends. See, all my friends are suffering. One has to have an operation, cannot, and has to defer it till the money comes. Another one is having some problems. Third one wants to go to Cancun. Actually, that was the story from the third one. And then the fourth one is having some troubles. Fifth one wants to get married. Sixth one wants to have a child. Like this, I have this big circle of friends. Each one is wanting money. So first I will give all of them, and family, of course. And then after that, I will make a mattress out of this money and lie like Mahavishnu and enjoy. This is a financial fantasy. All these fantasies, after a while, what happens? They are like as though there are little devatas in the air with little pins bursting these fantasy bubbles. Opposite of tathastu devatas. Tatha nastu. Yeah. So it's almost like there's a wake-up call because I understand that I'm living in a fantasy world. And that's why fantasies are dangerous. This is very adequately brought about, very nicely brought about by Panchadashikara in chapter 4 of Panchadashi. Yeah. In chapter 4 of Panchadashi, it is talked about all these manorajya, he calls, mental fantasies. And so therefore, no matter wherever the mind goes, it is Ishvara, no doubt. Even your thought of Cancun is Ishvara, but you are not aware of that. You are focusing on Cancun and letting go of Ishvara. In fact, here you are told to do the opposite. Catch hold of Ishvara, which is holding up the fantasy, and let go of Cancun. Bring the mind back. Bring the mind back. Wherever it strays, bring it back. Because here is where the safety is, the stability is, and the fearlessness is, and the freedom from sorrow is. Because even if, even if one is not ecstatic about Brahman, when one is told to do this, at least the mind is on an even keel. You avoid these graphic ups and downs. You don't need that. Especially at this stage of the jnanam, this is all ways of practicing nididhyasana to let go of these fancies, habitual orientations, which are in the form of fancies many times. So it's not that, here the mandate is to go for a boring life. Think of Brahman all the time. No, that's not what we are talking about. In fact, Brahman, is it an object to think about like fruit, or like flower? Is it an object? Don't think of flower. Think of grapes. Is it the same thing?
No.
No. Why? What is flower? Brahman. Grape? Brahman. Yeah. So here, Brahman is not yet one more object in the universe that you are being asked to meditate upon. This is ajnanam. This is not jnanam. If you think of it as one more object, then the problem will come with competing desires, competing thoughts, competing priorities. Because I want to think of Bahamas, one more destination. Yeah, and then what is instead I am being told Brahman, because both start with B. That's why I went there now. So, I want to think of Bahamas, but I am forced to be made to think of Brahman. Not fair. Here the person who complains like this has a problem. What is the problem? The problem is that Brahman is not understood. That's the problem. Brahman is not understood. If you think of Brahman or God or Bhagavan as one more object that competes with other thoughts and other preoccupations and other priorities, that means Bhagavan has not been assimilated as knowledge, cognitively unassimilated. Because what is Brahman? Brahman is Sarvam Khalvidam Brahma. That is the definition. All this verily here, everything that is indeed here is all Brahman alone. So what? Bahamas, Brahman, Cancun, Brahman, bank account, Brahman, everything is Brahman, Brahman, Brahman. And in fact, without Brahman, Bahamas will not be. Correct? Yeah. That which upholds the Bahamas, that which brought the Bahamas out, that which swallows up the Bahamas, everything is Brahman alone. So Brahman is not one more thing in addition to the Bahamas. Brahman is the very existence, the truth, the adhisthana of Bahama. You see? So therefore now, what is you're being asked to do in this verse is to go through the names and forms, not, get stuck there and see the truth, quote unquote, behind the name and form. It's not really behind. You can't say, okay, where is Brahman? It must be behind. Oh, that's the front. Okay, it's really behind. Where is, It's not that Brahman is on top of the Jagat, underneath the Jagat, behind the Jagat. These are just prepositions we are forced to use. But really speaking, in fact, the Jagat has no being other than Brahman. The Jagat will become threadbare. It's laid bare. There is nothing called Jagat. There is only Brahman. So, therefore, now that you know what Brahman is, one is being asked here to contemplate on Brahman. Who is contemplating? Brahman. What is the thought? That is also Brahman. The vritti is also Brahman. Knower Brahman, known Brahman, vritti, process of knowing Brahman, contemplator Brahman, contemplated upon Brahman, chanter Brahman, chanted upon Brahman, space between the chants, also Brahman, Brahman, Brahman. So from waking up, suptehe, now we'll come to the verse, suptehe, utthaya. Utthaya means waking up from what? Sleep. Suptehe, fifth case, from sleep, awakening. Utthaya, then what? Paryantam. Paryantam means until. Until what? Until. No. One more word is left, no?
Suptyantam.
Supti paryantam. Suptyantam. Supter utthaya, waking up from sleep, and suptyantam, until the day ends in sleep. So beginning from sleep to sleep, meaning waking up from sleep to the next sleep. Ekam paricintyatam, pravicintyatam. Contemplate on one thing only, and the pra and the vi give the sense of incessantly, without stopping. Nirantaram, pravicintyatam. Contemplate only on one thing. What is that? Brahma. Brahma ekam paricintyatam. And this is important because, the whole thing is about, transcending cognitively the name and form. I talked about it last time a lot, so I'm not going to spend so much time on it now. But we talked about that, and we also did a little meditation, I think, and we practiced what this is trying to say. So this is what one has to internalize. This is what one internalizes, and this is what one does, and has this whole thing, in a way, as a protection. Protection from what? Going after anatma, going after anisha, or becoming anisha oneself, because of raga dveshas come in. Because what the other important thing I want to add is that in the mental fantasies, what are the things that are upholding the mental fantasies? Where do the mental fantasies arise from? What are they upheld by? That's all. Raga and dvesha. So the more I entertain the mental fancies and fantasies, that means I'm giving airtime, to the raga and dvesha. Yeah. I have given them microphone, I have given them their own live stream account, so they can stream endlessly and live. They are live, they are alive all the time. This is contrary to seeing the truth of oneself as not subject to raga dvesha. The habitual orientation starts with interrogating the raga dveshas at a very sukshma, very subtle level. Here, in the mind of the person who has been exposed to some Vedanta at this level in the text, the raga dveshas are not going after malls and balls. Subtle. The malls and balls are happening here. It's the inward mall and the inward ball, B-A-W-L. And this is what is going on. This is what is going on inside. It's not overt. So the Vedantin now is stopped going places. The wanderlust is subsiding. The kartritvam, I have to do this, I have to go do this, I have to get together with that person, otherwise what will they think? I have to give them a gift, all these things, because they gave me a gift, I have to give them a gift back. All these things are subsiding. But then the raga dveshas, they are like viruses. They quickly morph into something else. Yeah. You try to treat it. You try to treat the virus and you get one antiviral thing, and what does it do? Quickly goes to some other, becomes immune to this. So now the raga dveshas are immune to movies. Let there be so many movies. So many movies, so little time. I'm beyond that. I'm movie atita, movyatita. Atita means beyond. I'm not moved by movies. Movies go, and the person can give a lecture on movies. All of them, have the same thing. Some secret something. These are all the Hollywood ones. Some secret, and then some big horrible thing is happening. The whole nation is going to blow up in flames because of this secret if it's not uncovered and then, decimated. And this Rambo type person comes on the screen and then, just runs all the time, is running. Running and killing. Yeah. This is what the whole thing is. This is called Hollywood. And in between some, dancing women who flit in and out of his life, like this James Bond. This is typical James Bond. This is what it is. Bollywood is not any better, different, but same thing. Rich boy falls in love with poor girl, or poor boy falls in love with rich girl. or they belong to the same economic status, but the families haven't spoken in 500 years because of some old feud. Yeah, somebody borrowed a cup of sugar from the next family and did not return it. That's why that's why this 500-year-old feud. Why it's called feud? Because it's from feudal times. It's being held. And then what? And then these people have to go, and then of course the heroine, they derive this from Ramayana, I suppose. Heroine is kidnapped, and then this fellow goes dishum dishum, and then they have a few nice moments because they say run around the trees and sing, and then they have a family photograph at the end. All the extended family sits down, and then that is the last shot. So now the Movyatita, who is the Movyatita? The one who has graduated from movies. Yeah, I know everything. One plot is like any plot. It's not a lot. It's nothing to be worried about. I'm not interested in the movie. Oh, that's wonderful. That's great. I'm not interested in restaurants either. Each one is same thing. Everything has salt and chilies and sugar. What is there? What is there to talk about? They have some sauce. What is there to talk about? Nothing to talk about. I am beyond movies. I am beyond restaurants. Atita. Atita? Yes, but these Ragadveshas don't think they are Atita at all. Ragadveshas have a different idea going on. So, this fellow is cramping our style. This fellow is really cramping our style because we really wanted to go here, there, and now this fellow has lost the desire to go here and there. But we have the mind. Yeah, the mind is still our slave. We colonize, we lasso the mind. The Ragadveshas lasso the mind and pull it towards themselves. So all the desires are fulfilled now vicariously. Sukshmatvat, in a very sukshma form, because of relying on the subtle mind, the Ragadveshas keep growing, keep colonizing the mind in various ways. And this is a big disaster to the nascent knowledge that this jiva, with great difficulty, overcoming so many problems in the life, came to the classes and came this far. This is a great endangerment to that nascent knowledge. So what is being described here? Sukter uthaya suptyantam, from morning getting up to night sleep, only contemplate upon Brahman. Here Brahman is not an object, Brahman is the very subject. Number one. So what is being talked about is a way to master the mind from the stranglehold of these ragadveshas that are lassoing the mind and pulling it in various directions. Cancun, no Bahamas, no Cancun, no, this one, no, that one. This is what the whole thing is. So here, just like when the light, when you have a small oil lamp, you have a little thin wick and a small oil lamp, and you sense a vayu, a gust of wind coming. Immediately what do? You go like this, right? You protect the lamp. You protect the flame for it to grow strong and stabilize. You protect it from the strong winds, especially if it's a small dying flame. Same thing with one's jignasutvam, mumukshutvam, one's jnanam, a nascent jnanam. Jnanam is not in stages or degrees, but still we can see it, in terms of growing clarity. So the clarity is there, but still some vagueness is there. Vagueness and clarity are sitting side by side. And in this kind of a jnanam, doubt is there, vagueness is there, in between little clarity is coming. But still as this clarity is coming, pushing through this doubt and vagueness and all mistakes, and then what happens? The Ragadvesha winds come and damp it down. So therefore, the hands that protect are nothing but this practice of contemplation. Even though we say practice of contemplation, it's not really a practice. You know why? Because, it's a lifestyle. It is not really a practice also because contemplation is not an action. contemplation is really not an action. Just like love is not an action. You can't go and tell somebody, please love me tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. You can't, it makes no sense. There's no meaning to it. So similarly, you cannot say, I'm going to become contemplative right now. When the mind is busy lassoing various objects, you cannot do that. When the raga dveshas are, holding the rope. Why? Because they are the basis of the aropa. That's why. So they are, the raga dveshas are playing cowboys and they are lassoing the mind. The mind is this poor tamasic bull here and nowhere to go. And so this, this is what is the situation. And so this being the situation, I have to protect myself. So you cannot order someone to be contemplative because that comes in time, that is a fruit, it's a jnana prapti phalam, jnana phalam. It is a fruit of knowledge. Becoming a contemplative person is connected to growth, is connected to clarity, connected to the extent of vairagya that one commands. That is, the extent of vairagya makes one the contemplative person. But here what is being talked about, it's not an order or a mandate to become contemplative. What is it? It's a practice. It's a meditative practice where I can help myself wake up the contemplative, speed up the contemplative person who's already latent, dormant within me. That is what it is. So I open the door for this contemplative individual to come out. That's what I'm doing through this practice. So that's why you cannot say, I practice contemplation. But really we are constrained to say that only. It is a practice here because it's being done deliberately with will. So therefore it's a practice. But then that the author hopes, and all the Vedanta authors towards the end of their texts hope that leads to the samadhi, yatra yatra mano yati, tatra tatra samadhaya, that naturally leads to a resolved state of mind because the mind is not busy giving into the R&Ds, not research and development, raga dveshas, to fulfill all their fancies. The mind is remaining with what is beyond the raga dveshas, transcending the name and form. The mind is always with the truth of oneself. So this is what the whole thing is. So that's why it's a practice, because I do it in the beginning deliberately. Just like dharma, I practice dharma deliberately, and after a while it becomes my own nature. In fact, it is my nature. So in the beginning I practice deliberate acts of contemplation by sitting in a place or walking meditation, whatever it is. I deliberately practice contemplative meditation so that the latent contemplative in me is woken up from its latency. That is what the whole idea is. So therefore it is, and then there is a sentence in Sanskrit, yad bhavitam tad bhavati. Very nice sentence. Yad bhavitam tad bhavati. And all the elders, like when I was growing up, all the elders, grandparents and all would say this to me, yad bhavitam tad bhavati, meaning you be careful what you think of. Bhava here is contemplation. Be careful, and contemplation is not just one-time thought. Repeatedly you think of that. That repeated fancy becomes a desire, a strong desire, and that strong fantasy actually seeks fulfillment. In fact, that strong fantasy, how do we say this, becomes fulfilled. Yeah, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. This is what yad bhavitam tad bhavati. Yad bhavitam tad bhavati means it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you don't watch out and if you are keeping on thinking of a certain thing, that thing will happen. Yeah. In other words, be careful what you contemplate upon. Yeah. Be careful what you wish for. Be careful what you keep on repeatedly thinking about. Like for example, if you go to a job interview, for example, And then the whole time you're thinking, I don't think I'll, ace this. I don't think I'll know all the questions. I don't think I'll get this job. I know I won't because there are so many more people qualified than I. And therefore I'm not able to do this. Why? I can't even, I can't even remember what this company does and what it is. I read it up, of course, but have forgotten, And so now I don't remember what all this is about. So how am I going to do this? I'm no good. And even my parents told me so. So therefore, it is ratified, it is sealed, signed and delivered, this message that I am a useless being without confidence and I'm not going to get this job. So the morning, suptehe utthaya, suptyantam, until sleeping, from morning waking up to sleeping, this is my contemplation. This is what I'm thinking. I'm no good, I'm an idiot, I'm, a lost cause. Why did I even apply? When I knew I wouldn't get it, why did I apply? Okay, now I have applied, I have no other choice, I have to go to the interview. Thinking like this, if the fellow goes to the interview, do you think they're going to get the job? No. Anybody with even common sense will say, will say absolutely not. You don't have to have you don't have to have a PhD to know that, the person will not go. This is absolutely logically, it's a logical outcome of this kind of a thinking. So does the thought have so much power? Yes, because the thought has power, because not that the thought is powerful, but I am identifying with the thought and I am powerful. Whatever I identify with it, I become that. Yad bhavitam, tad bhavati. This is very important. And another person, I'm angry, I'm hungry, I'm restless, I'm sick. Sometimes, like I told you that story, I was asked to talk to a group of, some chronic ailment, people with chronic ailments. Most of them were in wheelchairs and MS and so many difficult illnesses they had. So the first thing I said was, if you could let go of this illness right now, let's just fantasize, let's imagine, it doesn't cost anything. If you could let go of this illness right now, how many would like to be free from it? There was about 35 people, 35, 38 people. Not a single person raised the hand. Not a single person said, I would like to be free of this disease. And they all looked at each other. I thought they didn't answer they didn't understand the question. I had not expressed myself properly. So I said it in, 5 different ways. They said, well, this is who I am. I'm deaf. I'm disabled. I'm this. I'm that. You see that identification. So even the possibility of living without it, even mentally, which is really, that is the thing. So that is why the thoughts have power. Not because the thoughts are some possession coming from outside. The thoughts have power because I am powerful. I am powerful. And whatever I decide, and whatever I believe in, really, especially it's not like one is being asked to believe in the moon or something, unrealistic. Here, what one is being asked to practice staying with. My mental life stays with the truth of who I am as much as possible. In my mental life, I stay with the truth of who I am. Asangoham, viraktoham, I am free of everything. I am uninvolved. Shuddhoham, I am free of papa and punya, free of quote-unquote sin. Nityoham, I am infinite, I am limitless. Muktoham, I am free. These are the thoughts that I allow to crowd the mind. And these are the thoughts, filtered from the Upanishads. And what are the Upanishads? But my autobiography. That is what the Upanishad is. The Upanishad is the autobiography of the self. But then we are so many people. No. How many Atma? How many Atmas? Wow. But in Sanskrit, Atma, Atmano, Atmanah, that is grammar. What does it say? The language also is influenced by ajnanam. That's the conclusion. That's the correct conclusion. Yeah. Where you see 3 Atmas, 4 Atmas. No. Atma is one. And the autobiography of the self, not autobiography of the yogi. That is a different book. You know, where everyone most people cut their spiritual teeth on this book, autobiography of a yogi, you know. So, that's not the book I'm talking about. This is a book of self-knowledge. It is an autobiography of the self. And if you take it even jivas are discussed in the Upanishad. So, the journey from jiva to Brahman, the proverbial, the fantastic, and the, what's the word for it? The as though journey from jivatvam to Ishvara, jiva to Ishvara, letting go of this jivahood, all this is discussed. All the sob stories are talked about. And every Upanishad has a happy ending. In that, this is the only place you can really truly say what? Lived happily ever after. Even without this body. Kya baat hai? What a nice thing. So these words from the Upanishad, please, now that you know the meaning, you've read the book, you've understood and enjoyed the autobiography, pick a few inspirational quotes from it that you have understood the meaning of and spend your life, deepening your relationship to these words, to these sentences. That is how one contemplates upon Brahman, really. With the help of words. How does the self-knowledge come? With the help of words. How does the ignorance go? With the help of words. Same words are used again. Before, those words were acting in the form of a vritti that penetrated the mind and, cleaned up the ajnana. Now the very words are having a positive effect in deepening my identification with what I have understood to be the self. Yad bhavitam tad bhavati. So whatever you contemplate on, you become. And of course, with every little phrase like this comes what? A story, a little anecdote. Yeah. And this is a very interesting story. Actually, it is based on a adhyasa, a misinterpretation. But nonetheless, that's why perhaps it's a fascinating story. And what is the story? There is one Bhramara. Bhramara means what? Bee. Yeah. There is a bee. And then there is a Kita. What is Kita? A kind of a small little lowly worm. Yeah. And in relation to the worm, the bee is great, correct? The bee can sting, it can fly, it can buzz, it can do a lot of things. The worm just inches along. What can it do? Nothing. This lowly worm. And what happens to this worm? Somehow it finds itself. Bhramara here, I think it's better to take it as a wasp, not a bee. A wasp, yeah. Some flying, biting thing. Why I said wasp? Because bees, once they sting, they die. Here the wasp doesn't do that, yeah. So therefore the wasp outlives the sting. So therefore, here unwittingly, you have the entry of this worm into the wasp hive. Ouch, right? Yeah. So, or you can take instead of worm, you can take it as a small flying insect, like a housefly or whatever it is, some Kita. Usually Kita means some creepy crawly thing. Or some small, thing that accidentally wanders into this, literally a hornet's nest. Yeah, wasp nest in this hive. Then the wasp is very protective, of its territory. And even of your territory once it has occupied it. Yes. And it's very protective. And any intrusion is met with not one but repeated bites. This is what the wasp does. It doesn't stop, it just dive bombs. And it SMSs other wasps to come also. And they arrive in seconds. Yes, I have experienced it on my leg in Georgia. Yeah, so hundreds of them will come. So here, this unwitting worm has gone unwittingly into this nest of biting things. And then what is seen through the eyes, this is where the mistake is made, okay? Is that, in this nest, the worm has entered, and then the wasp is repeatedly biting it, relentlessly. And then everything is quiet. I'm just doing this for drum roll. This is just dindima here. So then everything goes awfully quiet. And then what happens? Then another wasp flies out. That's what is seen. And what is understood, mistake here, mistakenly what is understood? What is understood? The worm has become the wasp after constantly being bitten by it. Staying there in the company of the wasps and being constantly bitten by wasps, the worm has become a wasp. Brahmara, the Kita, has become a Brahmara. Instead of Brahmara, you just think of Brahman. And this hapless Jiva, the sentences of the Upanishad, constantly acting upon these ragadveshas. Ow, no, ow, mummy, this is the Jiva, It starts to call for its mummy and looks around for the feeding bottle and the pacifier. It goes into that, it goes into that stage of just so much fear, so much helplessness. But then suddenly, all those ragadveshas constantly being acted upon, aham brahmasmi, aham brahmasmi, aham brahmasmi, tattvamasi, 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 prajnanam brahma, ayam atma brahma. These are the quote-unquote the primary Mahavakyas. So the Mahavakyas are the wasps that dive bomb on the ragadveshas and then relentlessly bite them and render them useless. They are all tasered. Ragadveshas are going like zombies. This is the phalam of this nididhyasanam. So, stunne ragadveshe, when the ragadveshas are stunned, absolute locative construction, then what happens? Then that contemplative person comes out, yes, the one who was dormant, the one who was latent, comes out. And then all there is contentment. Yeah. So this dive bombing and this, ouch, ouch, is not happening to you. It's happening to the ragadveshas. The operation of the Mahavakya, wasps on the ragadveshas is just like this Brahmara Kita story. It's fascinating. Amazing, no? Amazing, yeah? And then the next line says something which is worth knowing. Because now, after listening to all this, not the people in this room, or not even the people online, but a proverbial jiva can say, why should I contemplate now? From wake up in the morning, okay, today is too late, I've already woken up, so tomorrow morning I have to start this contemplation. This is not fair. I'm still young. I'm in the prime of my life. Why should I do this? This is for retired people who have empty nest syndrome. What is empty nest?
Children.
Yeah, children gone, everyone gone. And then the two spouses rolling in a huge house which they had built for the grandchildren. No one comes. you know. Why? Because there are no grandchildren, you know. These are modern days, no one gets married. So therefore there are no children, and so therefore the spouses, you know, they've outgrown the marriage. There's hardly anything in common. And here they are at that stage, after retiring, after just, you know, being, after enjoying everything, after crossing off every list, including bucket list. Then I will take to Dindima. Then I will take to Om Namah Shivaya. Then I will take to a life of contemplation. Why not say that? Nati dure mrityuhu syat. Mrityuhu, Lord Yama, is just lurking around the house. Yeah. Na ati dure. Mrityu is not very far. Lord Yama is just hanging out in the backyard. Yeah. Death is not far away. How do you think it's far away? No, but I saw my horoscope and I had it checked through a very reliable agency, what is that called? Astrologer. And then the astrologer told me that I will live to celebrate my 111th birthday. How? Well, because the Saturn is in its own house. That's one of the signs of long life in horoscope. Saturn is in own house, along with Sun, which means always, you know, what is that? Sick, long life, but extremely sick. So like this you can tell. You can more or less tell the lifespan using the horoscope. And then when you are reading your horoscope and looking at your 8th house to see which planet is occupying the long life and the house of death, Lord Yama is, for Lord Yama, that is Sunday cartoon. He is laughing. Yeah. That is equal to Sunday funnies. You know, Sunday some funnies come. Yeah. This is what for Lord Yama, he just goes ha 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 ha. Why? Because the horoscope is wrong? No, astrology is never wrong. Then what is wrong? It's the time of birth was off. Yeah, that's all. You know, possible. But how do you decide what is birth? When the head comes out, when the whole baby comes out, and then when it's cesarean, it's very funny. So when the woman, the mother is cut into, that's when you decide? You know, how do you decide? And then when do they see the time? After cleaning up the baby and then stabilizing the mother and then putting it on the weighing scale and say, oh, now time, okay. Already half an hour gone. So how do you know what is the correct time? And if the correct time of Janma cannot be established, the correct time of Marana, Mrityu, is far away from establishing. You know, there is a wonderful story. There is one text called Leelavati. Leelavati is a work by the one of the earliest astronomers, Aryabhatta. You know, Aryabhatta, I think. And then Aryabhatta named this work after his daughter, Leelavati. And he was astronomy and astrology are all one in ancient India. It's called Jyotisham. It means both astronomy and astrology. And so he saw the child's horoscope, and he saw that the day she was going to be married, she was going to be widowed. Her husband was going to die the minute the wedding ceremony was going to be over. And in those days, you know, this is a big thing, because there was not, you know, remarriage was not common, all these things were not there, and the whole girl's life was spoiled if the husband happened to die. Not only that, there was just a lot of wrong ideas that, oh, you are unlucky, you ate off your husband, this is how people talk. And so all this was there. And so he looked at the horoscope, and found out, because he was so adept at it, he found a way to avoid this. He said, in this particular muhurtam, in this particular, conjuncture, planetary conjuncture, if the marriage takes place, then it will ward off the death of the husband. So then she grew and she was married and he also saw that this is going to come after so many years. So they stalled the marriage, waited till that time came, found the person who was in fit health, made him run the treadmill and, do all the things. And then at the appointed time, when that marriage, whatever that homa was being done, when they were supposed to take the 7 steps together, he sneezes. He sneezes. And 1 sneeze is always a bad omen. 2 sneezes are okay. But very funny. So he sneezes, Aryabhatta the father already gets a little bit worried. And then when he sneezes, he trips a little bit, you see. And so that caused a 1 second delay in going around the fire. And that was enough. Just drops dead after the marriage. You see? So, like this, there are so many stories. That's a story from ancient India. And recently, about 40 years ago, there was another astrologer, I forgot his name. I've told this story before. And he found out, reading his own chart, that the next 3 days were very dangerous for him, that he would die. And he would die of an accident. It was that also he could tell from the horoscope. So he made himself a padded cell where he repaired to. And all the food, was very simple food, because again he was very afraid of some contamination. That could also be an accident. So he only had a trusted cook serve the food and cook the food, and the plates were sterilized, everything was sterilized, and then put, under the door, and he repaired to a padded cell with all his notes and books, and didn't see his family, didn't see his wife and everything, and he was journaling the whole thing. And he just said, if after 3 days I come out, I come out. If you find me dead, just do all these things. He had just given written instructions. And he started to write. 2 days over. I'm feeling very good. Everything is going well. Just 1 more night. And then tomorrow I'll emerge victorious. Lord Yama will be beaten by my knowledge of astrology, he wrote in his journal. And then he was reading some papers. Being an astrologer, people brought all the horoscopes to him, and one of the horoscopes was pinned together. And just inadvertently he separated the pin because he could not read what was written behind, put it in his mouth and did this. Lord Yama, after reading the funnies of his life, was sitting at the tip of the pin, tetanus. Inadvertently he just put it in his mouth. Finished. And he wrote, Yama got the better of me. He wrote that before his death. So like this, one doesn't know you can foolproof everything. You can fool yourself. You cannot fool your Lord Yama. Yeah. Lord Yama cannot be fooled. Has no sense of humor. And has his own sense of humor. Very morbid jokes, as we have seen in the Kathopanishad he makes. They are pretty funny. But you have to be completely irreverent about death. If you think you can fob him off with a few jokes and do things, no, he's pretty serious about what he does, and he knows. Very serious. And so, for everyone, even the ones who have seen their horoscopes and who know that Yama is far away, we pray that Yama is far away, but everyone should say, Nati dure mrityuhu syat. Death is not very far away, so I may not have the time for contemplation that I thought I did. When? Earlier. Yeah, before reading this verse, I thought I had all this time, I had my whole life. I had half of my life. 111 minus, half. I have I have half of my life. I have 1/4 of my life. It does not work that way. Yeah, and especially if you even go by the Udana Vayu principle. If you start hyperventilating, the life gets short. Yeah. Tick, 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 tick. Take. Finished. And also another reason, na ati dure mrityuhu syat is mentioned, is because the fear of death is very much there. And that is part of one's habitual orientation. The body identification and fear of death, goes at the very last. It doesn't really go, especially if one doesn't have knowledge. But even if one has knowledge, it's difficult to remove that fear of death. So whereas here, one is told to embrace it. Na ati dure mrityuh syat, it's not very far away. And what I have to lose? Nothing. I keep contemplating. I don't have a lot of time, and it is not very far away. It is part of this, what happens to this body. And this body has been given to gain this knowledge and to establish myself in this knowledge. So I'm going to keep contemplating. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. We'll take a 15-minute break and come back.